Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leah Smalley. I'm the Assistant Director of Financial Aid Services at the Coordinating Board, and I'm so excited that y'all are joining me today because I have a co-presenter, Laura DeGresh, who is on the Training and Communications team under Financial Aid Services. And so she's going to be doing most of the presentation today, and some additional individuals from my team will also be presenting in the future months. So excited to have her here, and I will give her a little bit of intro in just a moment, but want to go through what are we going to be talking about today. So let's get started. So our topics of discussion are going to be the Net Price Calculator annual update. I want to go through that at a high level and make sure that people know that that's coming up, the deadline's coming up. Secondly, wanted to touch on the authority to transfer process. Some people are not aware that this exists. Other people do know, but they're not clear on how to do it, and wanted to go through the fact that the process itself has changed this year. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Laura to do the 23-24 TASFA update and talk through some things on TASFA to make sure that y'all are up to speed on where we're at. And then lastly, we'll be doing the regular deadlines and reminders to make sure you know what's on the horizon or what to expect in the coming weeks and months. Lastly, we just talked about questions. If you have questions at any point, what you'll do is go ahead and type those in the chat box. And we have Deshae Reed, who is the Senior Director of Financial Aid Services. She'll be fielding those on the side so that she can give you those responses real time. Again, this is recorded, so please be mindful of what you put in the chat and also be patient. We try to answer them as quickly as we can, but we know there's lots of questions on these things, these topics that we're going to be talking about. So without further ado, I'm going to get started with Net Price Calculator. So Net Price Calculator is something that we do each year where we collect data from the institutions of higher education, which is a statutory requirement. And so each public institution that enrolls full-time entering first-year students is required to send this file to us. What we do is we host that as a tool so that the general public can use that when they're kind of shopping around for schools and trying to compare college costs, specifically the cost of attendance. So that is something that we do each year. Now, last year there was some timing issues where we used a particular template, and so I'll get into that in just a moment, but this is quickly approaching. The deadline is next week. And within the memo that we sent out, which was on March 29th, we did include the instructions. On the screen right now, you can see the first page of the instructions, and they do include a variety of steps that you'll use to get your data to us. Now, today I'm going to go through this very high level. But if you use the instructions, it breaks each one of these down very specifically with screenshots and all the instructions. So my recommendation is for sure, if you're new to the process, or even if you did it last year, these instructions are your go-to because, you know, there are a lot of details within it. So let me do this first. I'm going to go through just the basics behind how do you get the information to the coordinating board. So it's basically three main steps. The first one is kind of your prep work. In order to update our tool and move things forward, you need to do a little bit of research and collect your data. So the first thing is to access the college student budget data, which is actually provided from the coordinating board to the institution. You'll want to use the spreadsheet that was sent out in the memo, and the reason that we're doing that is because we want the data that you put into the template to match what you already reported to the coordinating board. So that is one clarification I wanted to make sure that you understand, is that while we know you can pull your own budget data from your system, we want you to use what you already submitted to the coordinating board. So that was provided in the memo. It's also linked in the instructions. The second piece is to pull together your grants and scholarship data. Now that is something that you'll do out of your own system. And there are step-by-step on how to do that, not only in our instruction sheet, but you can also go on to the Department of Ed's instruction page, and it also clarifies how to do that. Lastly, you'll want to make sure that you know the percentage of 2021 full-time, first-time students that received grant or scholarship aid. That is one of the requirements within the template to actually save it. So once you kind of pull all this stuff together and you're ready, what you'll do then is you'll go online to the Department of Education's website to complete their online template. Now that is a change from former years where the state used to provide the template. Last year we transitioned from the state's template to the Department of Ed. So again, this year you'll go online. Now you'll want to make sure you access the 2021 template. It does have multiple years, so you want to make sure you grab the right one. Once you fill in all the different pages on the template, you'll save that copy. And the third step is you send it to the coordinating board. The way that we collect those is through Move It DMZ. And so each school has a dedicated folder for net price calculator. You simply log in, you upload the file, and it's sent to the coordinating board. Now, for the past 2 years, we do get questions. We have schools that run into trouble. And so we tried to think of some things that might help you when you're going through the process this year. So as far as reminders go, I just mentioned one of them, but I'll say it again. Please make sure you do the right year. We're always a year behind, so it's the 2021 template. Last year, we had folks do the 18-19 template. So there is a year discrepancy there because of when it was rolled out. It was just a timing, kind of a timing thing. So this year, you are doing the most recent one that's available on their website. So make sure that that's there. The second reminder is make sure when you're sending us your file that it's the index file. When you complete the template on the Department of Ed's website, it actually zips the file into like a larger one, and that won't process well in our system. It actually errors out. So a lot of times what we're noticing is that when you get your Department of Ed file, it's getting uploaded into our system, but there's actually an extract process you have to do. It's very easy, but it's just one additional layer that you have to do before it'll process in our system. Now, again, all of this is in the instructions, so definitely go back and take a look at those if you're wondering, oh my goodness, this sounds really complicated. It's not as bad as it sounds. It just is one additional step. So make sure you do that. Another thing is when you get to the coordinating board's net price calculator page, which is on the screen, if your school doesn't have a file, there's actually, when you look for the institution in the listing there, a little message will pop up that says that there's no NPC information available for that school. Contact the school. Now, all schools had to do it last year, but this would be mainly for private schools, health-related schools, those that are not necessarily required to do that, but may or may not have a file. So one thing is you're wondering if you have a net price calculator, here's where you can look and it'll tell you whether you do or not. Now, for those of you who have gone through the process and you're like, well, how do I know if y'all got my file? Like, I don't get anything. There's no email, there's no real message that it worked. So the way that you can confirm if we got your file is you're going to go to our webpage here on the net price calculator on the main page. You're going to find the institution in the listing, and then you hit the submit button. And what happens is a hyperlink is going to pop up. That indicates that we do have a file that you submitted to us. And when you click on it, it should be launching the 2021 template. Now, if this says 18-19, it did not work, and we still have your old file. If you run into that issue, you'll want to, again, make sure that it was the index file, go back and re-upload it into Move It, and then give it 5 or 10 minutes. It should really be quick, but we are noticing sometimes there's that lag there, so give it just 10 or 15 minutes. If it's still not working, then you'll want to get in touch with us so that we can troubleshoot what may be happening for you. So that is all on net price calculator. We did a webcast last year in March of 2021 where we went step by step, screen by screen. It was a lot more kind of comprehensive. So if you are running into issues, you can always reference that webcast and it will give you more information. But again, for this one, I didn't want to just repeat it since we already have that one available. So again, if you have questions, for sure, reach out to us. So let's move on to authority to transfer. Now, authority to transfer has been around for a while, but a lot of institutions haven't either known about it or utilized it as much as they have in the past few years, but we're noticing an uptick in that, and that's great because we want schools to be able to use your money. Now, what is authority to transfer? So real quick, authority to transfer allows institutions to be able to move money between programs, but there's specific programs and specific limitations on what you can do. Okay. So in the past, when you wanted to move money, we had a process in which you would send in the online contact us form, which is like a generic, online form. And then we would review everything, we would email back and forth, and it was a little bit kind of clunky, I'll call it, of a process, but it was the way that we handled that. So this year, what we did is we streamlined the process by moving it to an online form. And so a memo was sent out on April 12th of 2022. So that was just about a week ago. And within there, it not only clarifies the amounts that you can transfer, but it also includes that new online form, which is on the screen there. And from this online form, you can designate your institution, you can tell us exactly what you're trying to accomplish by moving money. And so this is a much easier way to do it. Now, this is just to initiate the process. This does not actually transfer any money. It's just to tell us that this is what you want to do. So once you fill out this form, someone will get in touch with you to tell you what the next steps will be. It's up to the coordinating board to physically move your money. There's no way for the institution to do that from your end. So I'll talk about that in just a moment. Now, the deadline, in order for us to move the money and get everything done before the fiscal year ends, we have an established deadline, which is July 1st. That's also a rule deadline. So it's in the Texas Administrative Code. So that is a hard deadline. So if you are thinking about moving money between programs, you'll want to make sure you start doing that soon so that you have enough time to get through all of the steps. Now, let's talk about real briefly what are the transfer limitations and how does that work? Again, I believe I did this last year in a webcast where I went real nitty gritty and explained the process. Feel free to look back at those webcasts to just get a little bit more information. But in a nutshell, there's two main types of transfers. The first one there is when an institution that participates in a combination of either a state grant, that includes Texas Grant, TEOG, and TEG, and then one of the work study programs. If you have a combination of those two, you can transfer money between those up to 25% of your total annual program allocation or $60,000, whichever is less. Now, those numbers may look a little different, and the reason is because that changed in the rule very recently and is actually up for approval next week at the board meeting, which is scheduled on April 28th. And then once that's approved by the board, the rules online in the Texas Administrative Code, those will get updated probably mid to end of May. So even though you're seeing these amounts on here, they don't quite match the code at this point just because there's a lag, but we wanted to make sure that people understand that these are the totals that you can do. So for example, if you have some work study money and you either don't have a lot of positions, you don't have a lot of interest, you've got a lot of virtual students, you have that money just sitting there, you want to move that money into your grant program so that you can actually pay out some grants to additional students or maybe increase their awards. That's how you do it, is you do it through this authority to transfer process. Now, with work study, you already have your money. You do have to return that to the coordinating board for us to move it into your grant program. You can't do it on your end. Okay, so before you do any returns or try and do anything, the first step is fill out the form. We will walk you through when to send the money back, how to do it, what you need to fill out, all of that. So first thing is identify, do you have money you want to move? Send in the form telling us where you want to move it to, and then we'll walk you through it from there. Now, the second transfer is a little different. That's allowing you to move money between the work study programs. So you've got Texas College Work Study, and you've got Work Study Student Mentorship Program. there's a rule that allows you to transfer money up to 25% between those two programs. So it doesn't have that $60,000 limitation. It's just the 25%. And it's just between those two programs. Now you can never go between above 25% regardless of the transfer. So if you're trying to do multiple transfers, again, fill out the form for each type of transfer you're trying to do, and we'll tell you if it's possible. Okay. So that is the authority to transfer. Again, the deadline is not for a while, but it will come very quickly, July 1st. It feels like an eternity, but I guarantee you, you'll blink and it's here. It's already April. I don't even know how this is happening. It's already almost the end of the semester again, right? But let us know how we can support you so that you can spend your money using this process, okay? All right, so we are going to move on to the main part of the show here, and I am going to hand it over to Laura. Laura DeGrush is part of my team, and she has played a huge role in the TASFA. Let me turn off my control here, Laura. But Laura has been involved pretty much since the beginning of the development of the online TASFA. So I asked her to join us today to go through what are some of the updates, what are the things that she can share with us, and then if y'all have questions, we're fielding those in the chat. So Laura, I'll let you take it away.
Excellent. Yeah, here we go. Speaking of things that are just right around the corner and how quickly this semester is going, our TASFA and our online TASFA is right around the corner here. So we are so excited. What we'll start with are some updates on the TASFA. Our online TASFA is developed and functional, so it's so exciting to see this working and in place. What we're doing now is refining the skip logic, working on error validations, and things that are really just cosmetic in nature now. So we are just so excited with the updates and our progress so far. What to expect next in terms of updates, in terms of data transmission, we will be getting to institutions of file layout so you can know what to expect about the data and know how to accept the data. We'll also have test files, and that those will be uploaded in MoveIt so that you can see how the files come through. And this will be a great opportunity for more training and feedback in terms of those test files. And this will be another way that you can partake and give us your thought on that. And we'll make sure that you're well trained on that so that it'll be clear and easy. And one more thing related to data transmission, we are working on the transmission of the TASFA completion status, and that'll go into the Applied Texas Counselor Suite so that we can meet the high school graduation requirement. So we are working at getting data to all the points and to all the institutions and people that will need the data. So it is very exciting to see in the works. In terms of our marketing and training and making sure it's clear that our information is out there to the public on the online TASFA, we just recently released a TASFA blog post for K through 12, and that went out through our agency's communication team, and you can hope to see more in the lines of release of notifications and information out to the general public, to counselors and institutions of higher education. In terms of our webpage where the TASFA will be hosted, we are collaborating on that webpage with our communication team, and it will be built out on our new agency website. So we are working currently on that design and content. And in terms of other trainings that we hope to build, we'll be partnering with Texas OnCourse in developing more training and resources so that we can be as clear as possible what to expect with the online TASFA, and so that more and more people are aware of it. In terms of making sure that we're ready to launch, we are actually already doing internal user acceptance testing, what we call UAT. And so this is already underway. And in terms of external UAT, We will be completing this over the course of the summer. And so we do know that there's been a lot of interest in testing and helping us out. We have abundant resources already so far, and our current testers are included and composed by the TASFA committee members. So we know that there was great interest, and there will be other ways of giving feedback and testing, since there are so many different steps and pieces to make this a beautifully working puzzle. As I mentioned before, in terms of transmission, there'll be a lot of places and opportunities to give feedback and help out and to test regarding how that data is transmitted. So we are moving along quite well. And so we also wanted to make some clarifications about the TASFA to make sure we're as clear as possible about what to expect. And so for the online TASFA, as it's just such a wonderful opportunity. What we've had in the past is so many requests to make a more streamlined and formalized process. And the wonderful thing about the online TASFA is that it'll be the sole acceptable online TASFA, and that'll be so nice for streamlining a process. And with the amount of requests that we've had to have something more formalized, it's really exciting as an opportunity so that we can bring that and make it an easier and more efficient process. So in terms of what to expect, we'll be working very closely with institutions so that you're able and understand how to accept the data generated from the TASFA, and so that you're ready and able to go once the online TASFA launches. And in terms of the paper copy of the TASFA, that certainly will be available, and we know that there was questions about if we'd also have a paper copy, and we will. So the TASFA document will also be available and will be the solely acceptable printable version, so that we'll have that same streamlined approach that should really help us to, as a whole, be more efficient and have that really nice streamlined approach. So we will continue to have the paper copy of the TASFA for the families that need it. And in terms of where to find these proposed rules, these are amended to the rules and will be reviewed, just as we mentioned with the authority to transfer proposed rules. These will be reviewed for approval at the THECB's quarterly board meeting coming up on April 28th. And once approved, or rather, if approved, the rule will be reflected and available in amendment in May of 2022. So that will be available soon. In terms of other things to expect for the online TASFA, we just want to be as clear as possible that this is really just around the corner, and we'll be launching in October of 2022. We also want to clarify that on what to expect on what we are launching for the online TASFA, that this will be for the 2023-24 academic year, and then moving forward, you'll see subsequent years there too. So we wanted to clarify that, yes, we will be launching in October this year, and what you'll see will be for the 2023-24 academic year. And in terms for students that will be filling out the 22-23 academic year application, this will still be available, and it will be a paper copy. So if students are looking for the 22-23 academic year, it'll be clear and available that they'll have the PDF paper copy. And I know that there's simply so much that we're going through now, and this will be available, and we'll be able to answer any questions if I'm going too quickly here. But a few other things that we would like to clarify is that our 23-24 academic year will be available for the online TASFA in English for our application launch. And we'll also have our Spanish version available in PDF. And for moving forward, we are fully considering other languages for our future releases. So it's all very exciting what we can offer moving forward. And so one other point we do want to make clear in terms of clarifications is that the online TASFA will be transmitting data so that data can be collected for institutions. But the online TASFA will not be generating an EFC. So we just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that we are just transmitting data to institutions. And so with these clarifications in mind, we know that we'll be following up with a lot more trainings and resources and updates as we go, but we just wanted to make sure that these were apparent and clear. So we will start now actually to look through what the online TASFA will look like. So you'll see here that we have a potential mock-up of a landing page for the TASFA. And so if you try to find this now, you won't be able to find it, but it is our projected idea for what could be available on a TASFA landing page. We'll also be on our new website for the agency, so things will appear most likely very different in nature. But we wanted to show you something of what we're looking for, what we're projecting. And so on our landing page, a user will be able to click on two very important buttons here, either to create their TASFA account or to log in as a returning user. And so those will be available. Other information that might be on our landing page, and we'll probably reiterate this as much as we can throughout different points in the application itself. Really, clarity and repetition will be important so that students have enough information and are aware of what to do and how to apply for the TASFA. So this landing page will also have a lot of questions and clarity so that we can really help a student or anybody viewing this page along. So we'll have frequently asked questions, and we'll also be able to help users to decide if they should fill out the TASFA or the FAFSA, and we'll make as clear as possible that they do not need to fill out both. So we'll have a lot of information on this first landing page. And whether a student hits the create their account or the login, we'll now go to what they would see next, which would be the application page. So here a student will also get a lot more information available, and this is just a projected idea of what would be on that application page. We'll have information about the TASFA, we'll have information about if the student should fill out the FAFSA or the TASFA and a way to direct them towards the FAFSA if needed. We'll also have information about the priority deadline. And you'll see here that we have just the application year for 23-24, but in subsequent years, we'll have the possibility of filling out the subsequent year application. So they'll be able to fill out the application, for example, for the 24-25 year. Basically, the important thing is that they'll be able to fill out various applications as needed for the year appropriate, but for this first launch, they'll be able to fill out the 23-24 application. And so what we're seeing here on this application page is a start button. And what will be important to know is that this is a dynamic page. And so if a student has already started to apply, it will say resume. And also if the student has submitted, they'll have an opportunity to also print and download their application once it's submitted. So this will be a dynamic page. It's the application page, and it will adjust depending on how far along the student is in their application or their status of completing and submitting the application. So lots of details there on that first application page. When a student hits start or resume, they'll be moving into the instructions page. And this is a dynamic page too, and where it's expandable so that there we go, so that the student can see instructions for themselves, the students, and also for parents. They'll have a bit of an explanation of what to expect in terms of what questions they'll need to fill out. And they'll get a sense of what the skip logic is so that they'll have a sense of what to expect if their parents' information will be needed. And so there'll be instructions here as really a third layer from starting from the landing page, going into the applications page, and also this instructions page will be as clear as we can so that students see the information they need so that they have the right information to fill out the application and to know if they should fill out the TASFA. And so from the instructions page, we'll go into the student tab here. We'll be collecting the student's information, and you can see the student can check what tab they're in on this side status here. And so the student tab will have 3 basic sections. We'll go over, the student will fill out their personal information, and then they'll go into their income and assets as applicable, and then also federal benefits and household information that might be pertinent to them. You'll notice here that this is different than the paper TASFA we've had in the past. And here is where we start to mirror in nature the FAFSA so that all of the student questions are together and all of the parent questions are together. So this is a little different than in the past. And so we are mirroring the FAFSA here a bit closer. Now, other information that will be captured on the student tab is the student's high school information. And this is collected and it's for the purpose of the completion status for the senior to meet their graduation requirements. So this will be dynamic in nature. It will adjust to if the student is attending a school in Texas, and it'd be dynamic in nature to capture what that school is. So it's exciting, and it'll be able to really help counselors in capturing this information that will go to the counselor suite. One more thing that you'll find in the student tab is the selective service statement of registration status. So this will be incorporated into the online TASFA, just as it has been on the paper TASFA. And so from the student tab, just like the FAFSA, we go into the dependency tab. And here we do have some pre-populated information from the student's personal information. And this is skip logic that we have already preset. And so it should help the student fill this out more efficiently. And so the student will fill out the dependency questions. And depending if any of those questions are yes, then they will be determined as independent. Just if any of them are. And the 2 first ones related to student, their date of birth or their marital status, those will be pre-populated from our student tab. And so with the dependency questions, if all the questions are no, the skip logic involved will have the parent tab appear. And so the parent tab will appear and the signature will be necessary based off of the dependency questions here. So that gives you a sense of our conditional fields and skip logic involved so that we can make this application as clear as possible so that the student knows what to fill out and how. And so let us look, say if a student did need their parents' information. And in that case, the parent tab will appear. And with that, there's also skip logic involved for the parent tab, so that depending on the parent's status, the parent too may appear or disappear, just depending. And so the parent tab is also dynamic. It should help for efficiency and clarity of what the student needs to fill out. And if the parent tab appears, there also will be a parent email generated so that the parent can electronically sign the application. And so that is based off of the information that is entered on the parent's email, and that will be as clear as possible with instructions and direction so that it's clear that how important that email is for the parent. And so that is a little bit about the parent tab and how dynamic it is. And so it's all very exciting and how efficient a student can fill out the application. Let us move on to the college tab. And here a student can select the college that they're interested in and put in their housing selection. So they will need to, for each college selected, they'll need to select a housing plan. And they can also optionally add a student ID if they have one. So a student will need to at least select one college in order to submit their application. And during the same period to submit, they can submit up to 10 colleges. And so that will be very nice that a student can select the colleges that they're interested in. And as opposed to past years or the paper application, they could only do one college at a time. Now with the online TASFA, it's very exciting that they'll be able to submit to various colleges at once. So that is what's really appealing about the online TASFA. And what we'll do now is we'll go into a few overall features, starting with the basic indicators for status. So a student will need to figure out where they are in their application and know what they still need to fill out, and we'll be indicating that with these status indicators. So it'll be clear where they are in the application and what they still need to fill out. And from there, they will also, what's really neat is how dynamic the online TASFA will be. A student can fill this out on their phone, on their iPad, or on their high school laptop, you name it. It'll be dynamic to work for that screen, so it'll be much more accessible. We'll also have navigation buttons to make it as clear as possible how to save and how to move forward or to go back. They can also select different sections as needed, so it'll be clear and available to students to move around in the TASFA. And one last really important thing about features is we will have help icons throughout. And these will really help to clarify any of the difficult questions that seem to come up, and there'll be information that a student can click on to really make sure they're answering a question correctly. And so that will be available for our online TASFA. And so to reiterate our main points with the online TASFA is that we'll be following up with much more training and online resources, and we'll be walking everybody through this process so that we can launch in October. And we're just so excited to really just to have this available. So we hope to be able to answer your questions as we go. And what we'll do now is I'll turn it back over to Leah, and we'll talk about deadlines and reminders.
Thank you, Laura, for sharing all that really great information. I know that it'll probably generate a lot of questions. We're trying our best to answer those in the chat here. Obviously, you can send that through to us, after the webcast as well. So I'll show you that in just a moment on how you can get in touch with us. But the end of the webcast is always dedicated to, what is going on either on the horizon or things that we just want to make you aware of. So let's touch on that. And then if we have additional questions, we can always circle back here in the chat. All right, let me see if this will respond here. It's always fun in the virtual world. There's always a lag. Anything happening here? Here, let's try this again. Here we go. Okay. So some deadlines. Luckily, we already talked about both of these. One, net price calculator is coming up next week, which is April 29th. We saw some stuff in the chat asking about the instructions. They should be available on the Student Financial Aid Program's webpage on the right-hand banner. It's also located in the memo. If you need a copy of those, you can always reach out to us and we can send it to you. Authority to transfer, like I said, not super around the corner, but definitely coming up fast enough. So our experience is it's never too soon to start that process because it can take time. So definitely, if you're interested, let's get those forms in. Now, coming soon, our program guidelines. I know that institutions heavily rely on those program guidelines. We are working closely with our legal counsel and everything else to make sure that those are ready to go for the year. So those will be released soon. We're waiting for that approval on the board meeting that we told y'all about. So as soon as that board meeting's up, then we should be able to get those guidelines out the door. The 10-day review process for preliminary allocations will be coming up. That's something that we do every year where we send out our calculations based on the data that we have, and you have an opportunity to look at it to make sure that it makes sense on your end before we publish final allocations. So the reminder here is just a heads up that we only send those to directors, so make sure that you're set up to receive your notifications from the coordinating board because those will only be going out to the directors for review. You do have 10, I believe it's 10 business days to respond to that, but it definitely zips by very quickly. So that'll be coming up. Next, summer institutional calendar. We publish this 3 times a year. We do fall, spring, summer. That is something that we're working on, and that helps you track upcoming deadlines, closures for the coordinating board, things that you'll want to be aware of. So as soon as we get that institutional calendar wrapped up, we'll be getting that out also through our notification system, but you can always go on our SFAP webpage, and it's located under the Stay Connected link. Lastly, their TEG engagement guide for any private schools. We are working on that. It's not ready yet. So if you're wondering when that will be released, it will be in the near future, but we are pulling that together to ensure that all of the instructions and the references within it are up to date. Now, some general reminders, financial aid database or FADS, the cycle 1 deadline has passed, and we know that there's some schools that haven't quite validated yet, but the deadline was April 11th. 2022. If you haven't been able to validate, definitely reach out, work with someone in our operations area. They can help, work through any errors you have. And there's no reconciliation required for cycle 1. So keep that in mind if you're sitting there trying to make your things balance. There are no totals that you need to be reconciling. So you shouldn't need to do that extra step. The other reminder is the Texas Transfer Grant. The interagency contracts were sent out to the public institutions that can participate in this program. The deadline was April 15th, and we are still missing some of those contracts. Now we know that those take some time for review, so it's just a friendly reminder if you need assistance or you have additional questions, just to reach out so that we can get those in as soon as possible, since we're trying to get that program off the ground. Lastly, Texas College Work Study Summer Awards are approved for fiscal year 2022. That's something that we release each year just to let schools know you can use the money during the summertime, especially during that discussion about authority to transfer. just know that if you have students that could benefit from using your work study money, but maybe it's during the summertime and you weren't sure if you could use it or not, the answer is yes. You can use your work study funds during the summer. It is approved. That's something that we released last year, saying that schools have the ability to use that from the coordinating board. All right, so last step here, I do this every single webcast. It's super fun. If you join, you're probably like, oh my gosh, we already know. But if you haven't joined, this might be new to you. So we're going to go through it. As far as getting in touch with the coordinating board, maybe you have some questions that we didn't answer, or you didn't, you come up at a later point. Ooh, it's going fast here. There's a couple ways to get in touch with us. And so one, I wanted to make sure you know how to guide your students if they have questions. So we have two lines. We have our borrower services line, which you can see here on the screen, which is our 800 number. That one is dedicated for students who borrow a college access loan or maybe had previous loans under the Be On Time program, any of the coordinating board loans, and including the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program. Anything related to those, they can call and get assistance from our borrower services team. The other phone line is something called the Texas Financial Aid Information Center, and that's a public line. It's a statutory requirement that we have a dedicated phone number that people can call when they need assistance, getting information not only on financial aid, but just attending college in general. So if you have a student that has generic type questions, maybe you don't know how to answer, you could always direct them to us and we'll try and get them to the right resource. Now, the phone line that institutions can use that is dedicated to institutions is our financial aid services line. And it's, while it is out there in the universe, we do not recommend that you give this to students. The more students or public folks that have this reduces the likelihood that you can get through to us quickly. So this is our 844-792-2640. That's your line. We have it open from 8 to 5 each day. We do close it down from 12 to 1, but we should be available on any of the days where the coordinating board is open. Now, lastly is our Contact Us feature. This is the one that we usually recommend people use. One, because it allows us to get back to you in writing, and two, it just helps us collect all the details to do the research. But there are specific steps on filling out this form that we want you to be aware of. So I'm going to go through this for you. Again, if you're new, you can see exactly how to do it. So from any one of the coordinating board's websites, that includes our main agency page, College for All Texans, HH Loans, our data page, all of them have a link on it that either says Contact Us or it says Inquiries. And when you click on it, this form pops up. Now you have to fill out the form in a certain way, otherwise it gets routed all through the agency and it just takes longer to get back to you. So one of the first steps is make sure that you click on institution. The second is to enter your institution's name, even though it's not required. It helps us route it to the right area. Just like your school, a lot of times you have workflows and different teams. Same here at the coordinating board. So definitely put your school name. Contact reason is probably the most critical piece. You need to enter financial aid question, no matter if it's student loan, maybe it's eligibility, maybe it's something to do with your funding and transferring, anything that's related to financial aid, any shape or form, make sure you select this and then it'll come to our area. Within the description, make sure you enter enough details to help us get back to you. If you don't put enough details in there, then usually we have to do a lot of back and forth to get you what you need. So definitely put that in there, but be mindful of personal identifying information from the student. Definitely no full socials or anything like that. But that helps us guide you through the process on getting an answer. Lastly, the most important piece is please put your phone number and please put your direct line, because we try our best with the information given, but a lot of times it helps just to give you a quick ring, talk it out with you, and then if needed, we can respond in writing. Okay. So I think that that's it on the contact us. Do know that it does take sometimes a few days, especially with weekends and everything else involved. It's not always a same day turnaround. If you have something urgent or you need to get an answer right away, you can always call that phone number and we'll try our best to figure it out and get you what you need. But 9 times out of 10, if it can wait a day or two, we recommend using that contact us. Okay, so we've got 10 minutes left. I see there's still some stuff popping up in the chat there. I don't know if we missed any questions, but I'm going to open it up. If you have any questions, if you can put those in the chat box, we'll see if any come through. And then if not, we'll wrap up for the day. And what will happen is we will get the video posted to YouTube. We'll send out a notification to the schools letting you know when it's out there, and then you'll be able to go and either watch this again or you can share it with folks that weren't able to join. All right, anyone? I don't see anything. Either people are frantically moving. I see a hand up. Unfortunately, we don't have mics. So if you have your hand up and you have a question, you'll go ahead and put that in the chat box and we can try our best to answer. All right. So the question I see in here is, will the student use the same username and password each year like the FSA ID? And this is for the TASFA. The answer is yes. Now, we do know that there will be students, unfortunately, that create multiple accounts. We don't necessarily have a way around that. If you're like me and you have 6 different emails, our system doesn't identify the student by an indicator like social like the FSA does, right? So unfortunately, if they create multiple accounts, we're working through those scenarios on how we'll field those for troubleshooting and whatnot. But our best kind of way to fight that possibility is just clear communication, trying to help the student understand not to do that. We're trying to make sure that we tell them not to use things like high school email accounts, college email accounts that could get shut down or changed, that kind of thing. But I hope that that helps clarify, but yes, they will use the same account. They'll be able to go back in and look at, prior applications, but we don't necessarily have the final decision on how many years back they'll be able to access, because obviously we have retention requirements and things like that, but they will for at least a year or two be able to go back and get copies of their prior TASFA. Questions? I see nothing coming through. So, oh, there's one, Crystal. Will the parent have to have a different email than the student? The answer is yes. The student will be sent a link into their email. That's how we have it programmed at the moment. So the email cannot match the student's. Now, this is a data collection. We're not doing any authentication. There's no way for us to truly confirm who that email is going to, right? Now, the parent will have to validate by using certain data points in order to access the application. They can't just click on the link and get in. But to answer your question, yes, it does have to be a different email. If they don't have an email, they would have to create one. Okay, I'm getting all sorts of questions. This is new. This is great. Okay, we have, can you please clarify the ability to use Texas College Work Study funds in the summer if school is using a summer header for 22-23 award year? I thought that one was answered up in the chat, but believe the answer is, I believe, yes, you can do that. But the thing is that we don't issue any money until the start of the fiscal year. So if you're trying to use those funds, we won't be able to get them to you till after September anyway. And to say, if you want to confirm what I said is correct, that would be great, because I'm just throwing it out there. All right, let's see. Mary, if students have questions as they're filling out the eTASFA, will they be able to call in or chat with you all? We don't have a chat bot or anything set up. We do have an agency chat bot, but it's not tied to the TASFA at the moment. They would have to either reach out to the school, their high school counselor. We have our phone line. 9 times out of 10, we should be able to help them. So we will be helping them get to the right resource depending on what the question is. Obviously, if it's a technical issue, they'll want to call the coordinating board. If it's a non-technical issue, usually we'll steer them to either the school or just the basics on the application. Let's see. Are they encouraged to use a college ID or TIN number? So there are multiple places within the application that request that they enter validations for ID. So for example, Laura showed on one of the screens that we have an optional spot for college ID if they've been issued one, and that is intended to help the school do a match when they receive the file. But it's optional because a lot of students, if they're in high school or they don't know it, we don't want to prevent them from submitting their application if they don't have a college ID. Same with the social security number or the ITIN. If they have one of those are technically optional since these students don't always have one of those. And so they can enter it, but they're not required to. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, we may have one from above from Deanna. I don't believe we got it yet. Will students upload tax documents or income info such as W-2s forms as well?
Yeah, I see a response there, it looks like.
Okay, excellent.
And yes, no, there's no upload function. All documentation and follow-up goes directly to the school. The school will still determine what to collect from the student. The coordinating board is not writing any rules or procedures requiring verification or documentation. That's still up to the school to determine the best way to do that for your institution. All right, we have about 4 minutes left. All right. Let's see, if a student says they completed a TASFA but didn't include our school, will we be able to see that somehow? Like with FAFSA needing a DRN. So institutions will not be able to see where a student submitted their TASFAs. Each school will receive the file if the student selects your school. So this, they do 10 schools. Each school will receive a separate file with that school, but we're not unlike an ICER where it shows the ones that include your school and then any others, it will not have those on there. And the student can log back in and submit to more schools. So they can do up to 10 at a time. So they can submit and then they can add more, and then they can submit and then they can add more and they can submit. They can keep doing that. We're looking at the different options on how many they can submit at a time. All right, well, we're about done. I am confident y'all will have more questions. You always do, and that's great. We want people to ask questions so that we can keep y'all up to speed and make sure that things are clear. As the months go on with TASFA specifically, we'll be doing dedicated webcasts, creating instruction documents, resources, blogs, all sorts of things. We're trying to come up with that to keep you connected to stuff. I'll be going to different conferences and giving updates there as well. So feel free to let us know how we can best support y'all in this transition. If you have other ideas for training, specific training, we are trying to beef up the amount of information we provide. So feel free to send that in to us. But that's all I have. I want to thank Laura again. She hasn't presented in over a year. She did a great job. So thank you so much, Laura, for sharing all your knowledge on TASFA. And I hope y'all have a great rest of the month, and we will see you back in May. So have a great week.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Thank you, Laura. Have a great day, everybody.